bringing you my rest of season rankings as we head into week 4 fantasy football. If you like fantasy football, hit that like and subscribe button as we are on the way to 2,000 subscribers here on the new 444 Fantasy Football YouTube channel. And we're going to turn all start sit questions down below. So make sure you hit that like, leave us a comment as well with that start sit question. Now, let us start off here with the RB tiers, and we're going to start it off with the S tier. And I got 6 main guys. Number 1 is going to be Christian McCaffrey. We know how prolific Christian McCaffrey is, especially with Brock Purdy, George Kittle being injured. It's pretty much been the CMC, Ricky Pearsall show in this 49ers offense. Give me Christian McCaffrey at the 1. Now, are we worried about injuries? Because we're always a little bit worried about injuries with Christian McCaffrey. Yes, but for all of us that own Christian McCaffrey, knocking on wood for us. Number 2 is going to be Bijan Robinson. We would love to see this Atlanta Falcons team take that next step when it comes specifically to them just being a little bit more efficient on offense. But we do know that Bijan Robinson's still going to get his. The volume is going to be his. Have him as my RB2 rest of the season. RB3 is going to be Jahmyr Gibbs. As much as Ben Johnson leaving had maybe a little bit of concern for this overall offense, they're absolutely humming. Have him as an RB3. RB4, Jonathan Taylor. Got to love the fact that Jonathan Taylor, you took him in the middle to the back end of your second round in your fantasy football leagues, and he's producing like this hero running back, like this legendary running back that he is. Indianapolis Colts offense as a whole has been super efficient. Gotta love Jonathan Taylor here as my RB4. RB5 is going to be Saquon Barkley. This offense is flooding between 3 guys, A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, and Saquon Barkley. And as much as it wasn't a great Saquon Barkley day in week 3, we saw week 1 and week 2 be really great for Saquon Barkley. Not so great for A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith. So as we kind of see this offense, I think they're going to rely a little bit more on the pass. But hopefully Saquon Barkley can get that touchdown upside that he has. I'm not saying that he's going to finish as the RB1 or RB2 that he finished last year, because I think that's just going to be impossible. But I think he can easily finish here in the S tier going forward. And then my RB6 is going to be Devon Achane. Can Mike McDaniel get this offense humming? Can Tua get this offense humming? I don't know, but Devon has been good, and so you're going to have to continue to play Devon as the weeks go. Have him really cemented here. I think it's hard for me to want to take Devon over like Jonathan Taylor, Saquon Barkley, so that's why I kind of fit him right here as my RB6, but he doesn't go into the next tier. Now, we move it down into this next tier, and it's the A tier, and we got Bucky Irving, we got James Cook, we got Derrick Henry, Josh Jacobs, Travis Etienne, Amarian Hampton, Kenneth Walker, Breece Hall, Kyren Williams, Alvin Kamara. And this A tier, and I'm saying this right now, the RBs were like some of the hardest to rank rest of the season. Main reason it was so hard is because there's a lot of efficiency here. We got Bucky Irving, no Mike Evans for the next few weeks. We got Chris Godwin, who's going to come back at some point. So it's really just the Emeka Egbuka Bucky Irving show for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. James Cook, we thought he was going to have maybe less touchdowns in 2025. Just kidding. He is the same dude that he was last year, getting all this touchdown volume. Got to have him here as the RB8. Derrick Henry, a little bit of fumbling problems, but nothing to be concerned about. Father Time is still going to catch up to Derrick Henry at some point, but I still feel very good about having Derrick Henry here as my RB9. Josh Jacobs, volume monster. Travis Etienne, you drafted him in the 7th round, feeling like he could potentially be a league winner, like at that ADP. Now, we're going to have to see, how much does Byshel Tootin kind of enter into this equation more and more, but I do have him as my RB11. RB12 is going to be Amarian Hampton, who's a big riser for me over this last week, especially with no Najee Harris. I think we could be talking about him definitely leading off the A tier. Potential with the volume that in a Greg Roman, Harbaugh level offense to potentially get into the S tier. But the issue is that they've turned almost into like Dan Marino type Dolphins offense, where they're just giving Justin Herbert the ability to be one of the top 5 passing attacks in the league, which is great if you have Ladd McConkey, Keenan Allen, Quentin Johnston. But Amarian Hampton here, RB12. Kenneth Walker, Zach Charbonnet and him split volume in week 1 and week 2, and then we saw the Zach Charbonnet injury. Kenneth Walker got all the carries. I think going forward, Kenneth Walker is going to continue to be the primary bell cow. Have him here's RB13. Breece Hall, no Justin Fields. Feel like we need Justin Fields back, just have a little bit better read option. Hopefully this offense can kind of reclaim, what week 1 was, not week 2. Gotta love Breece Hall here as my RB14. RB15 is going to be Kyren Williams. It is the Devontae Adams, Puka Nacua, Kyren Williams show. Matty Boy Stafford, pretty good matchups coming down the way. Gotta love Kyren Williams. Alvin Kamara. We know the Saints aren't good. If you're, grabbing defense, you definitely want to be playing whoever the Saints are playing. But Alvin Kamara, especially in PPR, he's going to get his 3 to 5 receptions. He's going to get some of the work. Gotta love him here as my RB16. Now we move to the overall B tier. And this is another huge tier of guys. And we started off here mainly with Javonte Williams. And Javonte Williams has been another surprise of the drafts. As much as Travis Etienne's been a surprise, Javonte Williams has been a surprise. The issue why I have Javonte Williams a little bit lower, even though he's had an amazing first 3 weeks, is mainly due to the fact that CeeDee Lamb is now injured. I don't know what this volume is going to look like, how efficient this Dallas Cowboys team is going to be, especially with George Pickens as a 1. They're probably going to have to throw the ball a ton just to stay in it because their defense is absolute cheeks. So give me Javonte Williams here at 17. At 18 is going to be Quinshon Judkins, who comes in and immediately just demands the RB1 role. especially not saying the Browns are good. They're not bad, but Quinshon Judkins seems to be one of the only things that this offense can kind of focus on. So give me Quinshon Judkins here at 18. 19 is going to be Trey Benson. Trey Benson takes over for James Conner. Sad to see James Conner go down with that injury. I have a feeling might be the last thing that we see from James Conner. But give me Trey Benson here at RB19. RB20 is going to be Ashton Jeanty, who there was some discussion a few weeks ago about, Chip Kelly and how this offense is going to impact Ashton Jeanty, where we're seeing a lot more work going to Dylan Lobb than we were actually hoping for. And Ashton Jeanty right now is sliding in as, the RB34 on a points per game basis with only 8.6. It is not ideal, but at the same time, we do know the prospect profile, especially if you drafted Ashton Jeanty, drafted him with your first round pick. I'm definitely panicking, but I'm also being realistic and thinking that they're definitely going to warm him up as the season kind of comes along. Have him here as my RB20. RB21 is going to be Mr. Chuba Hubbard. Now we've seen this, Panthers team struggle just a little bit, and that's nothing that we like to see, but he is the RB11 on a points per game basis. So getting the attempts, getting, some targets, getting some of the receiving work. He's had 2 touchdowns out of the air. So I think if this offense can continue to be what we've assumed that it can be, that we like what Chuba Hubbard can be rest of the season. I just think the upside that he maybe had last year, maybe a little bit less. RB22 is going to be Chase Brown. Chase Brown with no Joe Burrow was absolutely atrocious. Jake Browning couldn't seem to move the ball. Are the Bengals going to be in consideration to trade for a Jameis, to trade for a Russell Wilson? I hope so, because I'm freaking sick and tired as a Bengals fan of all of this happening to Joe Burrow all the time. But give me Chase Brown here. Definitely not where you drafted him, not where you hoped, but RB22 rest of the season. J.K. Dobbins slide in as my RB23 here in the B tier. We know what this offense can be with J.K. Dobbins, so I like some J.K. Dobbins rest of the season. Jordan Mason's getting all the volume. I think Jordan Mason would 100% be higher if we knew Aaron Jones was coming back. I think over these next 2 weeks, we're talking about Jordan Mason being an A-level tier type running back, maybe even an S-tier level running back. But since we don't know how that, stretch is going to be once Aaron Jones comes back, just a little bit more hesitant with him RB24 rest of the season. But if you have him for these next few weeks, you definitely love it. Cam Scadaboo is RB25. The Tyrone Tracy injury definitely enhances Cam Scadaboo rest of the season. Gotta love that outlook as he's continuing to run hard. He's running mean. This new Jackson Dart starting, how's that going to be efficient? I don't know, but he's going to probably get more touches. Tony Pollard's a volume king, not an efficiency monster. He's a volume king. We then move it into the C tier, my RB27 through RB34. Jalen Warren starts off this tier. We don't have to worry about Caleb Johnson. Really, we don't have to worry about Kenneth Gainwell. So it's the Jalen Warren. I almost said Tyler Warren. It's the Jalen Warren, show for sure. RB28 Straven Henderson. I would love to push him up higher. Just a little bit weird. Just feels like Mike Vrabel is doing what he did to Derrick Henry, where it's just like he's clearly the best running back, but as we kind of approach, and I think these next few weeks, we should easily see Traven Henderson climb into the B tier, especially as we saw Ramondre Stevenson get 2 fumbles in week 3. We saw the 1 fumble by Antonio Gibson. Definitely have Trevon Henderson there. DeAndre Swift, David Montgomery, Zach Charbonnet, RJ Harvey, Ja'Cory Cross-Kamara, and then Isaiah Pacheco to round out the C tier. Move on to the D tier. And we started off with Byshal Tootin, who's continuing to eat more and more. He's had a touchdown in each of the last 2 weeks. Now the question is he going to be like the Devon A. Chain? Is he going to be the Bucky Irving that emerges in the second half of the season? Definitely for sure. So I think Byshal Tootin could 100% be entering in the C tier, potentially by the end of the season being B tier. Aaron Jones dealing with the injury, still have him ranked here appropriately. This Minnesota Vikings team definitely could use some more playmakers, especially depending on who's starting. Is it going to be Carson Wentz? Is it going to be J.J. McCarthy? Nick Chubb, Mr. Volume. I think Woody Marks will overtake him at some point, but we're just doing the top 40 rest of the season running backs. Ramondre Stevenson, like we said, had some volume, but is he going to end up on the pine with those fumbling issues? Tyrone Tracy once he gets back, and then Brian Robinson, if he were to ever get any sort of opportunity with the San Francisco 49ers, could definitely be interesting. Now, moving on into my wide receivers. We started off in the S tier, and Puka Nacua has been the absolute clear wide receiver 1 rest of the season. Puka Nacua is getting the target share. He's getting the snap share. He's getting the first look from Matthew Stafford. So you absolutely love to see what Puka Nacua is bringing to the table. Now, going forward, I think the only concern that you would have is the health of Matthew Stafford, but 24.5 fantasy points is what Puka Nacua is averaging over the first 3 games. Gotta love it. Stick him here as my overall wide receiver 1. Now, wide receiver 2 for me is going to be Amon-Ra St. Brown for the Detroit Lions. And I think the question is a lot of people are worried, what was Ben Johnson going to look like without Amon-Ra St. Brown? Well, Amon-Ra St. Brown over here is absolutely emerging. He's getting the targets. He's having the receptions. He's having the touchdowns. Everything that you love to see. 22.8 fantasy points is what he's averaged through the first 3 weeks. Gotta love Amon-Ra St. Brown rest of the season. Have him sliding in right here as my wide receiver 2. Now, this is where things get a little bit dicey. I have my wide receiver 3 of Malik Neighbors, my wide receiver 4 of JSN, my wide receiver 5 of Jamar Chase, my wide receiver 6 of Justin Jefferson, and then Nico Collins as my wide receiver 7. And the part that I want to talk about with kind of these rankings specifically is yes. There's no Jamar Chase. And I think it's hard for me to put Jamar Chase as a top 7 wide receiver going into the rest of the year, especially with Joe Burrow missing most of that stretch. Now, the part about this is you can kind of mix up who you want, because we've seen Malik Neighbors have down weeks. We've seen JSN be absolutely electric, doing things that only Puka Nacua and Antonio Brown have done in their career, Julio Jones. Now, I still have, in this range, I still have CeeDee Lamb, even though he's probably going to miss, 2 to 3 weeks, because this is rest of season rankings. This is not week 4 fantasy football. I understand if you can maybe trade CeeDee Lamb for one of these other guys, but if I can't get one of these other guys for CeeDee Lamb, then I'm just going to be holding him. Now we move on to the A tier, and we start off the A tier with Jamar Chase as my wide receiver 8. Like we said, with Jake Browning, nothing that we can trust specifically when it comes to Jamar Chase and his overall PPR upside, but I do want to still have him as a middling wide receiver 1, because we do know the talent that Jamar Chase has had. And even when you're looking at Jamar Chase through the season, he's a wide receiver 11 on a points per game basis. So it's not the best. It's not the worst. We do have to take into account that talent. Now, wide receiver 9, Drake London. It's been absolutely abysmal. He's gotten the targets. Last week, he got the targets. Week 2, he did not get the targets. Week 1, he did get the targets. It's been kind of frustrating as a Drake London holder. Hold firm. Better days are ahead for Drake London, whether it's going to be Kirk Cousins starting, whether it's going to be Michael Penix. They need to get Drake London the ball, and I hope they figure that out here soon. Number 10 is going to be Garrett Wilson. And a lot of people thought Garrett Wilson, we're kind of undervaluing him. He's 18.6 fantasy points per game in full PPR right now through the first 3 weeks. Got to love where Garrett Wilson is. A.J. Brown had a resurgence in week 3. Got him here as my wide receiver 11. Devontae Adams, like I said earlier with Puka Nacua, it's kind of the target share between both of those guys. Got to love Devontae Adams here as my wide receiver 12. Zay Flowers maybe a little bit too low. Wide receiver 13, especially when you're considering the fact that Zay Flowers right now is finishing way above that on a points per game basis. I just want to take it into account what could happen with this overall Baltimore Ravens offense, where we see good days, we see bad days. Week 3 wasn't the best day for Zay Flowers, but he does have the target share that we absolutely like to look for. Have him here as my wide receiver 13. Wide receiver 14 is going to be Brian Thomas Jr. He's getting the targets. He's just not getting that overall production. I think we could definitely see Brian Thomas Jr. slip down these rest of season rankings. I bought into Brian Thomas Jr. before the season, so I'm definitely regretting that a little bit. Wide receiver 15 is going to be Tedero McMillan, though, here in the A tier. Now we move on to the B tier, and I started off here with 2 guys that maybe should have been in the A tier. It's going to be Emeka Buka at wide receiver 16, Rome Odunze at wide receiver 17, 18 is Cortland Sutton, 19 is going to be Ladd McConkey, 20 is going to be George Pickens. We'll have to see how much of that bump he's going to get with no CeeDee Lamb. Tyreek Hill at wide receiver 21, Ricky Pearsall at wide receiver 22, Keenan Allen at wide receiver 23, Mike Evans at wide receiver 24, even with the injury. Wide receiver 25 is going to be Rashee Rice, and wide receiver 26 is going to be Jameson Williams. The part about this tier that I do want to talk about, Ladd McConkey is getting the targets. He's not getting the production. Keenan Allen maybe, is probably a league winner through the first 3 weeks, especially with where you drafted him. How can he kind of sustain that rest of season? That's really going to be the question. And then Rashee Rice, I imagine the moment he steps back on the field in week 7, we're talking about Rashee Rice being an absolute wide receiver 1 going forward. So you got to have him priced kind of appropriately here. Now we move on to the C tier. We got Devontae Smith, who had a really great week 3, had kind of 2 duds in the first 2 weeks. Marvin Harrison Jr., Mr. Who knows if he can actually catch the football. I got some Ohio State jerseys behind me, and I understand it's a little bit concerning. It's a little bit concerning week to week when you're looking at Marv, what's going to be happening to him. I want to be taking a shot on Marv still. Wide receiver 28 feels a little bit more appropriate than where you were having to draft him, though. Wide receiver 29 is going to be DK Metcalf. His connection with Aaron Rodgers has looked good through the first few weeks, but also doesn't have that wide receiver 1 overall upside. Wide receiver 1, just upside in general, finishing as a top 12 wide receiver. Jacoby Myers, Mr. Reliable. I need to see Geno Smith just be a little bit better overall. We saw Trey Tucker get a ton of targets. We haven't seen a ton from Brock Bowers, even though he got injured. And then Jacoby Myers has been fine. Michael Pittman Jr., someone that could 100% be rising up these rankings as we see the Colts offense kind of start to hum a little bit more week by week. T. Higgins slides down to wide receiver 32. It's sad to say, but like I said, we slide Jamar Chase down the rankings. I think T. Higgins is actually the one that's going to benefit a little bit less just because of how he wins and how, precision Joe Burrow is. Jake Browning's not that. Jalen Waddle at wide receiver 33. Wide receiver 34 is going to be Scary Terry. Wide receiver 35 is going to be Chris Olave. And then wide receiver 36 is going to be DJ Moore. Now, rounding out the D tier, We got Deebo Samuel, Xavier Worthy, Quentin Johnston. And honestly, Quentin Johnston, I have him here as my wide receiver 39. And maybe this is just me being an idiot and saying, hey, there's a chance that he should probably be right now like wide receiver 27. This is just a giant tier for me of guys. And maybe I need to push Quentin Johnston higher. But you guys let me know down below. Don't roast me too hard on the Quentin Johnston ranking. Like I said, it's hard for me when I'm viewing both Ladd. I think Ladd's going to continue to get more of the targets. I think Keenan Allen's going to be very consistent with where he's at. And then Quentin Johnston, I feel like a little bit of the wild card. But maybe Justin Herbert can support, 3 top 25 wide receivers. I don't know if that's going to be the case. And maybe Ladd McConkey is the one that needs to drop a little bit farther in my rankings. So definitely some discourse there on Quentin Johnston. Wide receiver 40 is going to be Calvin Ridley. Wide receiver 41 is going to be Juwan Jennings. Wide receiver 42 is going to be Travis Hunter, even though I do think, depending on the roster, there's a chance that Travis Hunter is droppable. Wide receiver 43, Jordan Addison. 44, Khalil Shakir. And then wide receiver 45 is going to be Stephon Diggs. So this is my wide receiver PPR tiers. Let me know what you think down below. Now, let us move on to the overall quarterback ranking. And we start off with these quarterbacks. It's hard. I will say this. It's hard week to week to just not know who you should be starting. And so for me, in my S tier for QBs, it's going to be Lamar Jackson, Josh Allen, Jalen Hurts. These top 3 guys, they're getting the rushing upside. They have all the Konami code quarterbacks. Jalen Hurts, I think you definitely got value on because a lot of people were a little bit more sour on him after last season. Gotta love the S tier. At the A tier, we got Jaden Daniels, Justin Herbert, Patrick Mahomes. Justin Herbert, honestly, should maybe be at the top of this A tier. Just depends. I think if you drafted Justin Herbert, you were drafting him as, your QB 12, 13, 14, 15, feel very good about this A tier. Move on to the B tier. We got Drake May, Dak Prescott, Caleb Williams, Baker Mayfield, Justin Fields. Now you might say, Caleb, why are you, a little bit higher on Dak Prescott? It's just because they're going to have to throw the ball. I think they're going to be in game scripts where Dak Prescott is going to have to carry the team. Now, putting him ahead of Caleb Williams, Baker Mayfield, Justin Fields, maybe Dak Prescott should be at the bottom of this tier. But you guys in the comments, let me know how are you viewing Dak Prescott? Because as much as maybe I think the more discussion is with Caleb Williams, like Caleb Williams versus Dak, I think is actually the real discussion. But I do like all these guys here in the B tier. Move on to the C tier. We got Brock Purdy, Kyler Murray, Jordan Love, CJ Stroud, Jared Goff, Matty Boy Stafford. And then down in the D tier, we got Daniel Jones, Bo Nix, and Trevor Lawrence. And I will say this about the D tier with Daniel Jones. Daniel Jones could potentially make it into the C tier. Honestly, he's playing like he's a A tier quarterback, a B tier quarterback. I could get laughed off the face of the planet with this rest of the season rankings. I don't know if I just don't fully believe in the fantasy football output. I believe in this Indianapolis Colts team. So you know what? Addison, make a graphic for me right now. We're switching Daniel Jones. Move him up. I got to just go with my gut here. Move him up to the beginning of the C tier. That's where we're going to put Daniel Jones. And then we got Bo Nix and then Trevor Lawrence. Like I said, the quarterback position is definitely interesting rest of season rankings for me. But that's kind of how I'm viewing him. And Bo Nix, I feel like, is the one that he's just kind of gone down for me. He just looks like he's struggled, rest of season. I think you're going to find, QB 16 to QB 20. Hasn't necessarily taken that step that we were hoping for when it comes to Bo Nix. And Trevor Lawrence, oh my gosh, has been absolutely atrocious. So I'm just banking on the fact that he's got Brian Thomas Jr. and he's got a lot more people that he can potentially be targeting to help that overall fantasy football output. Now, moving on to my tight end rankings, we started off at the top and we got Trey McBride and Brock Bowers in the S tier. Got to feel very comfortable with these two guys in the S tier. Now, moving on to the A tier, Tyler Warren starts off this tier, and Tyler Warren's been absolutely electric. You drafted in the 8th or 9th round, and you're feeling great because if you can get any sort of production out of your tight end 3 spot, gotta love some Tyler Warren. Tucker Kraft slides in as my tight end 4. We like what we've seen from Tucker Kraft. He's almost like a mini George Kittle, or maybe like a prime George Kittle at this point, with George Kittle being a little bit injured. My tight end 5 is going to be Sam Laporta, and then tight end 6, rounding out this overall A tier, is going to be George Kittle, even though he's on IR. We're looking at this 49ers team. They need help in the pass catchers. Got to feel good about George Kittle. Now, move on to the B tier, and we got 4 guys in the B tier. I got Jake Ferguson, Jawan Johnson, TJ Hawkinson, Travis Kelce. Good solid tier. Jake Ferguson kind of sliding into that number 2, maybe number 1 overall role for Dak Prescott. Jawan Johnson has been a top 3 tight end through the first 3. TJ Hawkinson we saw some revival in week 3 with Carson Wentz, and then Travis Kelce slides in. He's kind of been the most reliable target for Patrick Mahomes. Now, moving it down into the C tier, we got Hunter Henry, Dalton Kincaid, David Njoku, Zach Ertz, Kyle Pitts, and Harold Fannin. Bunch of great guys here in the C tier. You kind of pick your poison. Like I said, this is week to week. Harold Fannin potentially could be making an appearance moving up into the B tier in coming weeks. Now we move on here to the D tier, and then we kind of round it out with Mark Andrews, Dallas Goedert, Chico Okonkwo, and then Brenton Strange, to name a few. Now, I gave you guys, I don't typically do this, but we're going to do this. We're going to quickly flash my kicker rankings right here. Addison, if you could give my kicker rankings rest of the season, kind of giving you my top 12 kickers. I do like to stream kickers, so I highly recommend you stream kickers, but right now, I just don't know. I think the one kicker that I do want to kind of highlight that I feel like just like not enough people are continuing to talk about is going to be Spencer Schrader. Just continues to go kind of up in value rest of the season. And then when we're looking at defenses rest of season, you got to feel pretty good. Denver Broncos, I like them a ton. The Minnesota Vikings, clearly. And I would just kind of stream matchups. I feel like this year in particular, it's been a little bit more high quality streaming matchups. So definitely be looking at those. But if you like fantasy football, if you like and have tuned into this whole video, hit that like and subscribe button down below. We appreciate you guys for tuning in, answering every start sit question down below, and I'll catch you on the next one. Peace.